All right, let's look at some more sci-fi. I was just talking about this book. I don't know. There's just so many different things that writing can do, and sci-fi has a specific mode. I do think it's interesting how gendered that sci-fi tends to be read more by men, and fantasy tends to be read more by women. But my fandom of Cosmic Engineers made me get a Heritage of Stars, and that was really cool too. It's kind of slow. It's interesting. It's considered a pastoral sci-fi story, but I loved it. Just going across this interesting future Earth. Yeah, it's cool. Yeah. It appears to take place on an Earth after most of Earth left the planet on spacecraft. And it gets like rediscovered, a place that sent humanity away so long before. That's a crazy idea for a book. Wow. Philip K. Dick's classic work, he believed this book was true and that he had experienced it elsewhere in the multiverse. I'm like, maybe. You never know with that guy. He believed that the universe is like a self-correcting sort of machine, and that it's trying to improve itself, and that it can manipulate time just like anything, and so that it occasionally resets and attempts to make things better, and there's like little effects. So like, because now World War II ends without Hitler winning, you know, maybe that's somehow connected to the light switch not being where you expected it to be. Just little tiny effects. He was a very, very interesting person. I think Galactic Pot Healer by him was like the first book to really just like leave me holding my head afterward. Like, what? It gave me like new thought patterns. That is a strange book. I still never quite been able to put into words the effect that book had on me. Galactic Pot Healer. All I know is I'd never read anything like it, and he is a unique author. The Scanner Darkly is also kind of high art. That's a really beautiful book. I'll read this sometimes, but I never have. Look at this beautiful book. I think it's part of a set too. The Last Starship from Earth. Dang, what a cover. What? This was like a great era of Penguin books. What was this? This is a 1978 book, 1 year older than me. This book is basically my older sibling. Robert Heinlein, Revolt in 2100. Whoa, we're going to catch up to that before long. There's always a sci-fi movie for whatever year. I know Soylent Green was a recent one. Blade Runner. This was a recent Freebox haul. But man, I love a good pulp cover. And Robert Silverberg interests me. I feel like there's some Albuquerque connection to him. Anyway, he's a name you see a lot in sci-fi. Where Silverberg goes today, the rest of science fiction will follow tomorrow. I think I've read a couple of Robert Silverberg's. I wonder if he wrote Mammoth. Yeah, what's going on there? To open the sky. What? Earth, Mars, and Venus are feuding. Torn between techno-religions. Torn between two techno-religions, one offering the certainty of eternal life and the other a far-flung destiny among the stars. Okay, this sounds wild. I like super far out freaky sci-fi. You know, I really thought I had Foundation and Empire, but I can't find it. Yeah, I read Foundation. I really enjoyed it. It's like a broad history of tens of thousands of years of humanity, with a very interesting through line. Somebody who's planned for all this deep time, trying to save the world, humanity, etc. Ostensibly by putting together a huge encyclopedia of knowledge, but it can never end. It's kind of Synecdoche, New York-like in a way, but more literal. It's really just a cover for creating a way for the most forward-thinking people to continue to maintain power, I think. But anyway, it was very interesting, and I was like, well, I want to read that whole series. It was good. I've got 2 beautiful copies of Foundation. If you live in Albuquerque and want one of these, tell me. Second Foundation. Man, these covers are great. These books are in too good a shape to Mod Podge one into wall art. They should be read. This idea intrigues me. It's just like a big round thing. What's the deal? Yeah, they just find a sphere in the ocean. Has the ship come from an alien culture, from a different universe, from the future? It sounds a little like Rendezvous with Rama, a little bit, but on Earth. And maybe a little creepier. You know, dude wrote Jurassic Park and Westworld, so look at this incredible book. Traitor to the Living. How can you not like that as like an object? It's so strange. Trouble was there weren't enough bodies. Traitor to the living. What? Philip Jose Farmer, I think, is an imaginative writer. I don't know that I've read him much. A heartwarming machine designed to provide a connection with the dead. Now all the world could reach their loved ones at a price. Anything that emotionally loaded and carrying that kind of price tag could be a powerful political weapon. But no one, not even the inventor, could guess at how terrible that price might become. Medium, a heartwarming machine. Huh. This is cool. These are like ads. Don't miss Amber Caffrey, Robert Silverberg. Huh. I don't hate that. Ads for books on a book. Philip Jose Farmer wrote a book I really wanted to read called A Barnstormer in Oz, and it is like a sci-fi version of Oz. Like it interprets everything from the Oz books in a sci-fi way. I'm like, that's really clever. I'd like to see that done. Like the Scarecrow works on nanotechnology. Neuromancer, arguably the first cyberpunk work. This and the movie Blade Runner, they came out around the same time and really created this ethos. This is soon going to be a series on Apple Plus, and I think they'll probably do a good job with it because Severance is so good. Might be the right choice for it. It's weird, the streaming world. But look at all the awards it won. Book of the Year. If you haven't read this, you should. Johnny Mnemonic, that movie with Keanu Reeves, is based on a short story in the same universe. And it has 2 sequels, but they're more like linked stories. They mostly don't feature the same characters. So there is kind of a through line character a little bit. Here. But it's really imaginative. Like, I don't know, what will happen to consciousness as technology continues to interface with humanity? We're going to see some crazy stuff. This book was ahead of its time and kind of prophetic in its way. This book, kind of shaped my life, It's weird, I've been working at the front desk at my old high school lately. This is one of the books I remember reading at that high school. Back in the day, not this copy, I don't think. Maybe it was this, a copy like this, not this one. But I don't know, this book might have put in my mind the idea that I love interconnected stories that are longer works. In sci-fi, they often call them fix-it novels, but it's a literary phenomenon too. People are going to say my memoir is one, because some of the chapters have been published, but it's always been kind of a piece. So I don't think of it that way, really. But I guess I don't care what people think. This is the story of the colonization of Mars. I mean, this is a classic. And so many of the stories are so memorable and so interesting. I mean, I still think about them. My favorite is one, The Man Who Fell to Earth, that movie with David Bowie kind of borrowed. And it's where this extinct Martian from an extinct civilization crossed paths with an Earth immigrant, And, but it's like their times overlap and it's so cool. Like to one, the city looks like ruins. To the other, what are you talking about? It's a thriving city. It's a Martian city. But there's a million interesting stories in here. And they're like, I don't know, they're all so good. I love the idea of making something that is really awesome in its totality, but all the parts are just like brilliant, memorable things too. That's this book here. I think you really got to sit down with this book when you read it though. I kind of read it distractedly once as an adult, and I was like, But I think it it needs your imagination. You watch the movie Phantasm, which is a very strange, indie fantasy movie. Spawned a lot of sequels. In the movie Phantasm, a character is holding and reading this exact edition of this book. Fun fact. Because I remember watching Phantasm, and I was like, hey, I have that book. Sure enough. My name is Legion. I thought it'd be kind of cool to make a movie, like a documentary called Books on Film, and it would just be all clips of people reading books and movies. But they'd have to be real books or no inclusion. Because it is kind of interesting to think about how literature is represented in movies. And I like sort of collage documentaries like For All Mankind or The Atomic Cafe or Baraka or Koyaanisqatsi. And I love, I don't know. I like just documentary ideas around a theme and so on. Like the City Symphony. I want to make a documentary that's just clips of Albuquerque. I have narrower ideas than that. In fact, all those Reading Central clips I post sometimes on this channel, I might string together 90 minutes worth of those take out the sound, put a cool soundtrack over it, write an essay over it to put on as a monologue. Bam, add some credits, send it to the festivals. These chumps will eat it up. Just kidding. No, I think that stuff's cool. I'm just joking. No, and I actually like weird artsy projects and stuff like that too. Like I like get fulfillment out of them. When my friends do weird black and white photography projects, I'm like, I love this. It's all great. And I'm not faking it, anyway. This sounds kind of odd. It sounds kind of like pulp noir almost. He destroyed his punch cards and changed his face. There was no credit card, birth record, or passport for him in the international databank. His names were many, and he chose. His occupation was taking mega risks in the service of a vast global detective agency. Oh, that sounds fun, actually. His inner world assignments were highly lucrative, calculably vital, and terrifyingly deadly. And more often than not, his life was a living hell. Zelazny lived in Santa Fe, and he's written some really good books that I like, including one of my all-time favorite sci-fi stories, For a Breath I Tarry. Ugh, what an incredible story. Zelazny lived in Santa Fe, and wrote a lot about New Mexico, said a lot of his stuff around here. Sorry, I'm always like, that person's from here. New Mexico pride and whatnot. This has a New Mexico scene in it too, quite a few actually. A lot of the sci-fi that I read, like kind of the most I've ever gotten into sci-fi was when I was trying to read all the science fiction set in the future of New Mexico for something I never ended up writing. I thought it could have become a book actually. It totally could. But it was going to be like a slim book, I think. I just heard a neighbor yell, "Oh my God." So this book is crazy. Scientists figure out cloning. And anyway, they also figure out fast, moving a figure's intellect forward so that you can make a clone and then like make them who they were, like grow them in extra fast time. It's explained pretty believably, for a good sci-fi novel about something crazy like that. One of the things they end up bringing back from ancient biblical times with cloning is this horrible disease that turns everybody clear and kills them. And it kills off most of the people on the planet. And the transformations are really striking. That turning clear thing is like made to be very, very creepy in this book. Long wrote this amazing book called The Descent that is really very different from the movie called The Descent. Totally different kind of story. But in his book, The Descent, it's discovered that Earth is full of tunnels, like, a worm's nest. And that people that moved into the Earth thousands of years ago have mutated into a different species. And it's like frontier rapaciousness as the surface humans move into the Earth and just like kill off these people and fight with them. And you really it's crazy. It's a really interesting, huge story that has a lot to say on the frontier. If I ever taught a class on the frontier, especially Manifest Destiny and the Western frontier of the U.S., I would probably have The Descent be a book that's read. Fortunately, I give away a lot of the books I really like. But this one's pretty cool. And one of the neatest parts about this book that I really loved, and sci-fi gets bagged on like it's not like high lit or something like that. Sometimes it totally is. And I don't know. Genre asks what those questions even mean, because it's like, here's a really good book. Well, what makes it good? Should I get the Pulitzer? I don't know. Maybe it's pretty awesome. There's a part in the middle where this character just goes around a mostly abandoned world for like over a year, and it's so interesting. It's great. Those are often the best parts of post-apocalyptic books, like the Route 66 Drive in Earth Abides by George Stewart. Very good also. But this book has parts set in Los Alamos as like the last scientists in a world gone mad are still trying to figure out solutions. And this crazy cult worshiping one of the clones is gathered outside and threatening the scientists all the time. And the scientists feel like they have to use nukes against them, and it's crazy. In Jerusalem, an American archaeologist working on Project Year Zero, the search for the historical Jesus, crosses the line between science and theft when he helps plunder an old Roman landfill beneath the crucifixion grounds known as Golgotha. Okay, I forgot all that bit. Nathan Lee Swift's crime will have devastating consequences when an ancient relic is opened on the black market. A 2,000-year-old plague is unleashed and the dying begins. Wait, what's this cloning stuff I'm remembering? Is the pestilence threatens to wipe out humanity, he finds a chance for redemption by finding the cure. Skirting the edges of civilization, Nathan Lee sets out to find his youngest daughter, travels to Los Alamos, where a desperate tactic has been adopted. The use of human lab rats cloned from Project Year Zero remains. Now Nathan Lee will come face to face with one special cloned human who may hold the key to salvation in more ways than one. Patient Zero claims to remember who he is, and his name is Jesus Christ. This is like almost false advertising, because that is not the main emphasis of the story. They're like, what's the best way to advertise this? Like that little cult biz stuff on the side, I don't know. Yeah, anyway, Jeff Long is good. He's a really like thoughtful, like existential, thematically weighty, literary sci-fi writer. But he feels like he's genuinely of the genre too, and not like somebody dabbling in it or deigning to slum. You know, I think I would get all his books. I mean, yeah, I would. How many copies of this do I have? That was from a Classroom Free Pile, I think. That's a pretty cool cover, too. I've always liked the gloaming, that like Edie Brickell album cover, Horizon Biz. These stories are great. Jack Williamson is such an interesting figure. Not enough people know about him. I have so much to say about the sci-fi section. I love the sci-fi section. Jack Williamson, what an interesting figure. This guy wrote books from the 1920s to the early 2000s. He was one of the longest lived, most prolific golden age sci-fi writers that there were. He was every age of sci-fi. And he was from Portales, New Mexico, this little peanut farming town I've been to many times, out by Clovis, New Mexico, way out on the Eastern Plains. And he thought Albuquerque was like the biggest town in the world because it was the city that was the only one he could imagine at the time, I guess. He made it the capital of the solar system in a number of his books, and very central, and most notably in his Legion of Space books. And here's 3 of the 4 Legion of Space books right here. And basically he took the character of Falstaff from Shakespeare and paired him with the 3 Musketeers in space. That's the premise of the Legion of Space. And that's fantastic. And Jack Williamson is a good, funny, imaginative, weird writer. I mean, I read a short story he wrote once about a future in which everyone is forced by robots to be Boy Scouts. And it's like hilarious. He played that premise like totally serious. Ha. And then Jamboree is like this terrifying event. Ha. But this one is exactly as fun as that premise sounds. It would make a great movie, kind of a Guardians of the Galaxy style movie. But also the character who plays Falstaff is immortal. And so that's really interesting. And he's in the 4th one just by himself after the lifespan of the Legion that's with him. But they go on crazy like space fights. I mean, look at that awesome cover. Like what is that thing? But in these stories, Albuquerque, New Mexico, where I live, is the capital of the solar system. Because this guy from Portales, that's just what he imagined. Of course, Albuquerque is the capital of the solar system. And he's not that wrong in that there is like space race stuff happening near here, and who knows how central that could be at some point. It has a green dome over it in these 3 books. In the 4th book, it has a purple dome over it because the green dome has been destroyed. But they battle all over the mountains east of town that I love, the Sandia Mountains. And they battle over the volcanoes. And I think they fight these green brain things. And but they're a lot of fun. And the Falstaff character is really fun. He lives forever. He's just always like eat, drinking, and being merry while also fighting. Great. Jack Williamson is so good. And he has just written some of my favorite sci-fi. He's great. He shows what's so good about sci-fi, that it's just like fun, interesting, cool ideas that making you think outside of your daily zone, your just normalcy. I think my favorite book of his, though, is called Terraforming Earth, and he wrote it when he was literally 98 years old. It's an excellent book. I love Terraforming Earth. It's such a good idea. We'll get to it. Let's just look at it right now. I love this book, Terraforming Earth. Look, I bought this nice library copy used online. I have no hesitation in placing Jack Williamson on a plane with 2 other American giants, Isaac Asimov and Robert Heinlein. Arthur C. Clarke. Wow, that's a great cover. But this book is so cool. It's kind of how my mind works. I love it. So Earth is going to be hit by an asteroid. And so a DNA bank maintained by clones is set up on the moon and it's supposed to come online when Earth has started to heal itself a little bit. Like, this book covers so much time. It covers millions of years. It's really cool, and I love stories like that. And so these clones are made just like insta generated out of carbon or whatever, but they're like alive and they're the same people and they can maintain their memory from life to life because it's like downloaded or something. The clones keep waking up and trying to like help Earth along, and they don't always agree with each other, and they're living this like huge story over deep, deep time. And it's just so imaginative. This guy, I forgot just how great Jack Williamson is. He donated enough books to the Portales University, the Eastern New Mexico University there, that they now have the world's largest science fiction library there. And I've always wanted to go visit it, but I never have, because every time I've been in Portales, I've been like working for somebody. Like I used to be a driver for the New Mexico School for the Blind, and we were in Portales all the time. But I never had time to check that out, and I never had time to go see Buddy Holly's studio in Clovis. I mean, I saw the outsides of both these places, but anyway. Jack Williamson's great. But we're looking at paperbacks. Here's more Jack Williamson. This is a best of short story collection. I guess if I have stuff, I'll just pull it off. He's great. Oh, here's the fourth one. This is where just the Falstaff character lives on. He's immortal now, and it's in the far future. The Green Hall has become the Purple Hall. Another series that people really love called The Legion of Time about different characters. I've never read those, but I wouldn't be against it. I think I've read some of these short stories. I forget what's in here. The Metal Man, the happiest creature. The cold green eye. Nice. Jack Williamson for the win. I totally judge books by their cover. Like, how could this not be an amazing book? It has to be an amazing book. Like, what? Only the oceans could feed Earth's exploding population. Then something fouled them, and all mankind was doomed. The menace below. The year was 2160. Oh, this could be fun. Yeah, it's another copy of the Eden Cycle. Maybe I should just go off about the Eden Cycle every time I encounter it. Increase the chances of people liking this, and it's someday being adapted into a book. Not a book, it is a book, a movie. Raymond Z. Galloon. I mean, this book was great. It's so imaginative. Aliens beam the plans for a perfect virtual reality machine. I buy every copy of this I can find. And the employees of Don's Paperback books must be similar because they always seem to have copies. Yes. Actually, they're just called Don's books now. But so, yeah. These characters figure out that they're in a gigantic matrix, perfect virtual reality matrix made by benevolent, super intelligent aliens and given to Earth along with anyone else that found their signal. Like, what would you do if you had millions of years? How would you make your life matter? You know, if everything seemed illusory, how do you make it all matter? It's really a philosophical book. It's beautiful. Sci-fi often is. You know, literary snobbery is weird because it's like, what is it even for? What are those books exactly? There's so many good books that are not just like, you know, Cormac McCarthy or whatever, Virginia Woolf. And I like highfalutin literary stuff. I love it. It nourishes me. But genre stuff is great too. Sci-fi really scratches an itch. Deep brain itch. There's sirens going crazy right now. Gift from the stars. As you choose in all matters, you have ultimate free choice as long as you do not seriously interfere with the choices of other roving personalities. Superior alien intelligence rules over Earth with absolute benevolence and total control. Offers man a future with no seeming limit to time or space or reality. Any man can have anything he is capable of wanting forever. Does man really want absolute free will, and what will he do with it? Is this noble plan gone sour? What is the future of mankind, if indeed it has a future? This is a beautiful, amazing, intellectually and emotionally provocative book. It's great. I don't know anything about these John Boyd books, but their covers alone make me think, yeah, well, I'm going to read that. Because I'm very easily manipulated by cover art. With John Boyd's earlier science fiction novel, The Last Starship from Earth, Robert Heinlein says it belongs on the same shelf with 1984 and Brave New World. And the LA Times noted it's in the literary tradition of Huxley, Orwell, and Bradbury. I just have this because Walter John Williams wrote Hardwired, and I loved Hardwired. That's a great cyberpunk sci-fi novel. Excellent stuff. This one I looked at in another video. This is a really cool, I mean, okay, that is such an 80s cover, right? But, you know, Come on, we all like Mad Max and stuff. This is like reading about a world like that a little bit. But techno. Anyway, so I get all of Walter John Williams stuff, and I think some of it also takes place in that same world, which is a really cool, like cyberpunk Santa Fe. I love it. I mean, Albuquerque is going to be more cyberpunk than Santa Fe, probably. We've already got Q Lab and 2 secret labs. Kurt Vonnegut, Science Titan. I read this one, but I don't remember it well. This cover makes it sound a little pulpy. Boy, the sirens are going nuts. Is my next door neighbor apartment on fire or something? My life is so strange. I gotta finish this book. I tell myself 10 times a day. I read most of these, and then I lost the book or something. I remember one that was pretty cool, though, about this never-ending party where people kept cryogenically unfreezing themselves just once every 100 years to party as their ship traveled across the universe, and entropy got further and further along both in the ship and the universe. It's so interesting. I've since read another book kind of like that, but it's good. This is fresh. I grew up on H.G. Wells. I love H.G. Wells. I sometimes talk about how families used to just have the family book collection, and everyone would look at the shelves sometimes and be like, maybe I'll read this. At least my family's house did. My family always had half really religious books though. So I always thought well, these ones suck over here. I don't want to read anything on those. I mean, no offense, religion, but it was just arcane, my parents' religion, books about this or that. Rarely interesting to me. They were all very, very Mormon. But one was called The Fate of the Persecutors of Joseph Smith, and it was all Mormon folklore about how everybody that hurt Joseph Smith had horrible things happen to them afterward. Dang, what is going on out there, Siren City? That's my sad, affectionate nickname for Albuquerque sometimes. But I grew up with all 4 of these books. I read them over and over again. I recently mentioned an H.G. Wells trilogy, but I forgot about The Island of Dr. Moreau. That was in there too. It was really a quadrilogy. And I read his other stuff too, like Food of the Giants and a couple of others, but these were the 4 that really hit, and I just wanted to read them over and over again as a kid. I mean, this one basically invented time travel, and it did it with such flair and style and extremeness. It's only going into the far future. Humanity is divided into 2 different groups, the Eloi and the Morlocks. The Eloi are basically cattle for the Morlocks. The Island of Dr. Moreau, which is just a freaky idea. Some psycho scientist who's obsessed with vivisecting animals until they're humanish, and it's yikes. This book's been accused of being racist, I think, and who knows, maybe it has that elements. H.G. Wells definitely had some ugly, dated opinions here and there about eugenics, etc., and race, honestly. But this work has been adapted 3 significant times in film, and almost a failed other time. It was Island of Lost Souls, the great Val Lewton film, still eerie, still beautiful. I watched it not too long ago. Introduced the idea of a Panther Woman to the story, and she was in all the movies. There's no Panther Woman in this book, or if there is, she gets a line. Then there was the 70s version, which is pretty good, and had such great lines as "He who breaks the law goes back to the house of pain." There's a lot of iconic lines in that version. But the actors always look like they just gelled their hair. Then there was the 90s version, which brought in DNA and is pretty psychotic and has Marlon Brando with a deranged performance. It's and Marlon Brando's little creepy twin. War of the Worlds, of course, the classic novel of Martian invasion. It's beautiful and convincing and great. Love this book. So good. Read it many times. Seen more than one movie version. Weirdly, the Spielberg movie version takes a lot from John Christopher's Tripod trilogy, including throwing a grenade into the open porthole of a tripod. Great, now they're never going to adapt the tripods. It's good stuff right here. This is a secret favorite of mine. I'm is that my very favorite? This is if I could wish a book true, this would be one that I might wish true. Basically, this comet passes over Earth, and it just ends all jealousy and hatred and fear and negative thinking. And it just leaves everybody reassessing their roles. Soldiers put down their weapons on battlefields. And it's just so interesting. And you don't get a lot of stories like that in the world of pulp sci-fi, Not that this is pulp, but It's literature of its own way. I mean, they're inventing something new here. Like, just because you invent a new genre with your literature, with which writers like H.G. Wells and Jules Verne and Mary Shelley basically did, like, why should that be less than literature, you know? Genre is less than literary. You, like, literally invented a new form to tell a never before told story. Like, that's the early science fiction writers. I mean, for real skis. Love H.G. Wells. Love all these books. If you have young kids, raise them on these books. They're totally readable. I used to read these in the single digits all the time when I was super young. I loved them. I think immediately of, yeah, this house I grew up in, age 7 to 10 in Austria. Like, these books, I read them all the time there. And copies that look just like these. They might be some of the same, but yeah, I doubt it. Paperbacks don't live forever. Maybe The Island of Dr. Moreau. I remember reading that once. I was like, I'm going to sleep in my parents' old shed tonight when I was like 14. And so I just went out and slept in this like backyard shed that just had like a pitchfork in it. And I read this book. And then in the morning I got up and I immediately stepped on a board with 2 nails in it. And I had to go get a tetanus shot. And it was super hurt. But now I'll always think of that. And it was so creepy. I would think it was like one of the most creeped out times I've ever been by a book. Recently, when I was trying to write an essay, I'm calling Noctilucent, about an actually scary incident in my life one time, that I'm trying to write like it's a horror short story. I was thinking a lot about this book, and I think I even reread it because I was just like, why did that scare me so bad? Because you can't do scares in a book the same way you do in a movie. You can't do jump scares, for instance, really. It's like more about creeping feelings, and yeah. I think 3 of these share a cover artist. Oh, okay, I've never read this book, but I love that movie. That's one of my top sci-fi movies ever. Love Contact. Also filmed in New Mexico. At the very large array of satellites, and at the Los Pinos Mountains, south of Albuquerque. Part of the same mountain chain, the Sandias and Manzanos, out east of Albuquerque, are in our big mountain chain here. But this is such a great story. Aliens beam a plan to Earth to, or to anyone who's out there, to build a communication device to talk with them. Carl Sagan's so great. And when I read Cosmos, I was like, does this guy like have like a benign cult I can join? What an awesome person. I mean, just makes you to just see the beauty in existence and stuff. What a profound philosophical act really good pop science can be, you know? And there's so many quotable lines in that movie. I always think about it. I think about Jodie Foster's character being like, she wants to ask the aliens, how did you do it? How did you survive your technological adolescence when you had the ability to destroy yourselves, but not the intelligence to stop yourself from doing so? And then I think the movie kind of answers, and probably this book too, though I hear the movie kind of condenses a lot of things. Like, it has many people go through the space machine in the book. But in the movie, like, the worst of science has to die. This guy that's like, just, ego driven, dies in an explosion. And the worst of religion has to die. This zealous suicide bomber dude, he goes too. And like, that's the solution. You have to get rid of these extremes and work together and look for the future and your own survival and everyone's, something like that. I think this one should go in the weird books, and I honestly am not sure where this came from. Vivid and challenging novel of sex worship in a pagan society. Famous Testament of Man series. This looks like a Vardis Fisher. Pagan beliefs. Oh, it's a novel, so I guess it should stay out here. Hailed as the most ambitious project for the imagination of present-day fiction by the New York Herald Tribune. Well, if it's about ancient thoughts and stuff, I'm totally into all that. Interesting. Not so much sci-fi as genre, and there's some other genre books in this section. Maybe I'll put them all together. Pagan. I like a good pagan story, though. Like, I love the original Wicker Man. It's a good movie. Mote in God's Eye. This is a famous sci-fi work. Robert Heinlein says possibly the finest science fiction novel I've ever read. Oh, it's a literal, like, something that looks like an eye or something in the sky. Somebody going to, oh, they go to an extraterrestrial world. Cool. We'll read. I also have a follow-up to this. This one, The Mercenary. Bought this at a thrift store. The fantastic forerunner to the Mote in God's Eye. So should I read that one first? Never know with prequels. I just kind of couldn't pass this book up at an Escalante, Utah thrift store. I knew I had owned that book before and I would get it again, which I did. This is one of the few classic horror books I own. There's a famous book now that collects all the covers of 80s horror and really shows them to be a unique data set of artful, specific stuff, you know. Paula, darling, I beg you, please be careful of that house. I have such bad feelings about it. I am very afraid for you. That's so good. I started reading this, and it started off a little smarter than I expected. I was like, whoa. It starts with some pretty high quotes, you know. Anyway, I wanted to read books about dreams recently. I wrote something in August about dreams. I paid attention to all my dreams that month, and it was kind of a crazy month, so it was interesting. It's the second dream essay I've written. Another one, I wrote down all my dreams for 6 months while on a long canoe trip. Got a cool piece of writing out of that. Yet to be published. Got accepted by a journal, but they said I'd have to cut it down to like a third of the length. And I tried, and I was like, I don't really want to do this. I'm like, have some vision, people, or don't publish me. So I walked. This might be the third and only Raymond Z. Galloon book I own. Got the Eden Cycle, Bioblast, and this. I honestly don't know if there is anything else by him. And I've seen barely any discussion of the Eden Cycle on YouTube. I've looked all around, and I've looked around the internet. It's kind of forgotten by most people, but might be my favorite sci-fi novel ever. It's so good. Either that or For a Breath I Tarry by Roger Zelazny. No, I think it's the Eden Cycle, because the Eden Cycle also has a wish fulfillment element to it. Like, you could kind of build a religion around the idea of the Eden Cycle. It's just a really big idea. I've always wanted to read this book, and I never have. Canticle for Leibowitz. It's about like a religious order in the far future, studying just an ordinary person from our time, like their ATM receipts and stuff. The precious relics of their founder, the blessed blueprint, the sacred shopping list, and the holy shrine of Fallout Shelter. Wow. I love big picture stuff like that. That's such a great idea. And I think this is set in the deserts of Utah, and that's a great setting. Use it. Yes, I love those deserts. This is some kind of pulp genre novel. The Doomsters, like disenfranchised youth. Finest writer of hard-boiled private detective stories since Raymond Chandler. Okay, it's like a private detective story. Yeah, I don't have a lot of that kind of stuff. Should I put this in the mainstream paperback shelf? It's a private detective story. I do want to read it. I would welcome the excuse to read it, but those shelves are getting pretty full. Think about it. Oh, I read this one. It's pretty cool. About bats. It's set in New Mexico. I used to have this friend in Las Cruces, Dave Zander, that he was a pretty cool guy. I should get a hold of him again someday. But he always was recommending New Mexico set stuff. He really kept track of it. So you got to see Curse 2 The Bite. It was all filmed down here. And he's right. I've watched it. Apparently he was an extra in a scene, but he got cut out. I've never seen Curse 1, but Curse 2 The Bite is a pretty good radioactive snakes that bite you into turn you into a snake creature movie. Filmed in southern New Mexico. And it's got this trucker band singing this great old song I can find no record of outside of the movie, and I love it. It's all, 'cause it's a long way to go from here to Albuquerque, and I guess I'd better put that hammer down. That's in Curse 2 The Bite, and I'm like, what is this trucker ballad about? A long way to go from here to Albuquerque. I love it. Some southern New Mexico relic of the 80s. New Mexico had a whole like wild bar culture back then. I've written about some of the specific ones. People like riding their motorcycles around in the bars or their horses or whatever. People play Pac-Man and lasso each other and drink a lot. If you don't believe me, listen to the recordings of the Beaver Smith Band at the old bar in Zuzak's on YouTube. They're insane. You can just hear the bottles smashing through the whole song. It's just like that scene in the Blues Brothers with the chicken wire cage around the bar, probably. Anyway, this is a book about vampire bats in New Mexico by Martin Cruz Smith. So I read it as part of that reading every sci-fi book set in New Mexico's future series. I mean, it didn't quite fit those parameters, but I thought I got to use that somehow. Yeah, sure, the present. It can be set in the present, too. And I think I was actually going to have a chapter on, like, sci-fi of the past and stuff. Establish a complete timeline. A brief history of the future of New Mexico was going to be called. That's why I have so many of these New Mexico set sci-fi things. I also enjoyed this book. And then I got rid of it. I didn't have it for a long time. Then I found it again. We just couldn't stay away from each other. Me and Nightwing. Oh, the movie version of this traumatized my kids when they watched it when they were too young. Something Wicked This Way Comes. I did not think that PG movie was particularly scary, but they thought it was the most terrifying thing ever made. It's just the devil offering you little, distractions. Anyway. This is a vampire book set at UNM, my old college, written by a woman. There's not a lot of women writers in the sci-fi world of New Mexico. There are some. Melinda Snodgrass, for instance. And Susie McKee Charnas writes a lot of fantasy, and she usually sets things around UNM and Albuquerque. That's so wild. She had a lot of success, I think, with this book especially. This book I bought recently at Don's because it's just so beautiful, and I'm like, it's probably good, right? Look at this thing. No, and then I read the Earth Floods. That's fascinating. A white rainbow appears. Okay. It's a beautiful looking book. Good, look at this thing. Dang. Same with this. I am such an aesthetic chump. Seriously. Just like, yeah, I'll read that. I like how it looks. Wow. Childhood's End. I think this is considered one of his best ones. I do not know what it's about. But the guy wrote 2001: A Space Odyssey, the book, and the script of the movie with Stanley Kubrick. I mean, look at that cover. I just want that as like a giant framed poster in my house. I look at it all the time. It'll be my new best friend. I'll tell it all my secrets. Got this one recently from a free box. It won the Man Booker Prize. Orbital. Stories of 6 men and women traveling through space. I bet that's why I grabbed this up, but also for the sci-fi thing and also for the design. Sentence is so gorgeous. So this is like literary sci-fi. Cool. Again, what do any of these terms mean? I'd love to read some good definitions. The Girl, another John Boyd book. Look at how beautiful that is. Really, it's the designer we should be talking about. The Girl with the Jade Green Eyes. Well, might complete a trilogy, those 3. Andre Norton. Plague Ship. Wow, look at that cover. What? Incredible. Plague Ship. Their ship starts an interplanetary epidemic, and the galaxy has declared that the Solar Queen will be destroyed on sight. Well, yeah, if they got a plague. What? Look at this incredible artifact of a book. The Slaves of Heaven. Yeah, okay, I must admit, one of the last times I went to Don's, I was like just wooed by all these beautiful covers. I was like, I looked through the whole sci-fi section with like, the best covers at least got a second glance from me and a reading of their synopses. And then maybe I bought them. Like, wow. That reminds me of a character, that turret on a ball in For a Breath I Tarry. But I'm sure this is different. Man's primitive descendants preyed on by slave masters from the sky. Whoa. When I was buying all those books based on their beautiful covers at Don's, I got this one too. Cryptozoic. I had read some Aldous before, like The Long Afternoon of Earth, which I thought was really cool. Giant alien spiders have stopped the Earth and the Moon from moving because they've woven webs between them, and humans travel between the strands. One of the best sci-fi novels of the decade. Cryptozoic. Edward Bush moves through the past like a phantom, but cannot escape the ghost of his own future. You know, this reminds me of a character I made up, the billion-year-old man. Maybe that's why I got this. One time I was waiting in line for some food at a baseball game, and I was like, what would this feel like if you were a billion years old? And then I just started thinking about this character, because I was thinking, like, that guy wouldn't care at all. Like, I watched a mountain range rise up once, and I wrote a little short something in the voice of that character once. It will be in the poetry chapter of my book. Yeah, look, there's a couple of people in that scene. Cool. This looks great. Oh, how great. Edward Bush is a young artist sketching the desolate landscapes of the Devonian age millions of years from home. There he meets Anne, another mind traveler, and they decide to travel together to the later Jurassic Age, where they materialize beside a 20-foot Stegosaurus. Thus begins an extraordinary adventure across eons of time. From Bush's home time, 2093 AD, to the utterly alien experience of a time uncreated, the Cryptozoic. Nice. Okay, this is totally unlike any book I own. Look at the terrible condition it's in. It's got a sticker that says Carlton on it. What? I have this because it's about Glen Canyon Dam. And so it's a pulp, like modern political thriller about blowing up Glen Canyon Dam. And I'm the only person to ever canoe around Lake Powell, which that dam formed. The oar I did it with, painted on by my daughter. And there's a shelf of books about Lake Powell, which I guess I'll have to look at eventually. And also, maybe this one should go on that shelf, but no, let's keep it. Well, Did I buy this book just for its title? Yes. The Moon is a Harsh Mistress. But also, Robert Heinlein wrote Starship Troopers. I don't know about that book, but I love that movie. And I've read many stories and novellas and things from him. I've never read Stranger in a Strange Land, despite everyone telling me my whole life I should. The moon is a penal colony in the future. Revolutionary plot. I like these two books together. Robert Heinlein, The Moon is a Harsh Mistress, and John Campbell, The Moon is Hell. This one looks quite interesting. Oh, this is the great writer's vision of the first man on the moon, not as the American space program made it happen, but as it might have been. Well, that's intriguing. Oh, well, gotta tape that up a little. And then this one I just recently got at a free box, and it's about people connecting the brains through the internet by taking nanotech pills. Cool. This is the last 2 videos worth of books right here. They're still sitting out on the table. Those shelves. This one went long because I know I'm not going to be able to post it right away. So it's kind of 2 videos worth of stuff. At the moment I'm just talking to myself. Complicated phone business. I won't be able to really fully use my phone until tomorrow. I'm signing up for this family plan with my kids, and it's really kind of messing with my ability to communicate for 24 hours. All these numbers are transferring. It means I'm not posting this video right away, though I would. I don't know. If you are the kind of reader who has never really given sci-fi a chance, I recommend it. I think we should all go outside our comfort zones and read different genres and stuff. Read it all. See what writing can do, Be readers who read broadly. It's a great way to become a well-rounded person, I think, reading. I don't know, though I still don't feel well-rounded. I need to add more athletic stuff to my life. Yes, I worked at a summer camp for 2.5 months this last summer, but on a daily basis, I'm mostly sitting behind a desk. All right, 2 shelves of paperback sci-fi so far. A couple more to go. A hardcover shelf. These little fellas down there. Saturday Review of Literature reviewed this. I'm like, did this go on the other shelf? Do I even have room on the other shelf? Literary paperback. It's different. Anyway, we'll look at some more sci-fi next. Yeah, I would say even if you don't read sci-fi, check it out. Find some of the best, Make it a part of your reading life, at least a little, I should read more fantasy. And I want to read more of all the different genres, if they're good. Not Insane Clown Posse fan fiction. I watched 5 minutes of an Insane Clown Posse movie the other day on Tubi, the free app, and I was like, I'm good. Just found a demographic that it's not mine. But my daughter Anodyne has a partially juggalo friend, and she's actually really cool. I just don't like that music at all. Mike, no one asked you about the juggalos. You're reviewing sci-fi. Oh, yeah. I kind of like sci-fi next to science. That's not a bad way for a bookcase to be. Looking at all these sci-fi novels makes me think maybe I should almost always have a sci-fi novel going. Also, I'm going to write a sci-fi fantasy novel this November. Earth is an Egg. It's a sci-fi treatment of a fantasy idea. But I guess that would just be sci-fi because, genres are weird. Yeah, I'm going to read The Moon is Hell. Throwing that into the to read mix. I like the idea of an alternate moon colonization. That's a cool premise. I like these little rips. I'm going to have to tape this up so they don't get worse. Vincent's busy watching TV. That guy really does look like Ben Stiller. I read a version of that book to my daughter Willow when she was way too young. I mean, she insisted on it, and her older siblings really wanted to read it at bedtime. This is also called 5 Were Missing. And it gave her paralyzing fear of being kidnapped for a year. It was not worth it. I completely regret reading that to her. It's a great book, and it's partly set in the Sandias in Albuquerque, but anyway, Willow was too young for it. All right. I just wanted to say to everybody, thanks for following. Thanks for watching. The numbers keep climbing. The numbers are weird. It's strange to watch like a chart of something like that. Like 5,000 people watched videos of your bookcases this month. I'm like, what? Actually, it's 10,000. That's crazy. Probably a bunch of them were like 1 second, like, nope. He's going to do something else, right? He's not just going to talk about his bookcases. Oh, no. I'm out of here. All right. Sci-Fi. This concludes our longest video on this channel yet, probably. 50 minutes. Whoa. All right. Y'all are great. Glad you're out there. Thanks for your comments. You're so cool. I can tell, like, we'd all be pals IRL. I mean, I just get great, smart comments on the channel. People recommending good stuff to me that I need to check out. And just being generally good people of good taste. Pretty awesome to get to know y'all. I'll post a review of The Moon is Hell after I read it. Y'all, thanks. We didn't follow a sci-fi channel. You were reading literary stuff. Sorry. Gotta love a mysterious photo. I think my dad took that one when he was a traveling salesman. Somewhere in northern New Mexico. You gotta kill at least one snake every day. Reverend Howard Finster told me in a dream one night. I love folk art. And I love sci-fi. Alright. Y'all are cool. Ultimately, all art is folk art, right? Aren't we the folk? All of us. Alright. All humans. A book coming out this year that I'm really excited for is All Tomorrows. Speaking of sci-fi, have any of you seen the YouTube video of the next billion years of human history written by a paleontologist? Someone reads this hard-to-find picture book on YouTube, and it's incredible. Developed a massive and fervent fandom, and we're going to get a hardcover, full-color English language version coming out middle of this year, I think in June. I'm definitely going to buy that. It's so good. It colonized a lot of my brain, that book. You'll start thinking real big picture about what humanity's possible futures are. And it's so smartly written and like kind of believable, as extreme as it gets. What? Love sci-fi, love speculative stuff. All right. Y'all are great. Take care. See ya. Bye.